The Battle of Jutland was fought between the afternoon of the 31st of May and the early hours of the 1st of June 1916. It was the long-anticipated clash between the British Grand Fleet and the German High Seas Fleet, the two largest naval forces the world had ever seen. But although the battle itself lasted less than 24 hours, it took several days for the world to understand what had actually happened. The first British Admiralty communique was issued on the evening of the 1st of June. It confirmed that a major action had taken place and acknowledged the loss of several British ships, including the Battlecruisers Indefatigable and Queen Mary and the cruiser Defence. It also stated that German losses were considerable and that the enemy had withdrawn. But it gave no explanation of the scale of the fighting or the significance of the outcome. It was factual, cautious, and emotionally flat. The newspapers of the 2nd and 3rd of June reflected this uncertainty. Britain had long expected that if the German fleet ever came out to challenge the Royal Navy, the result would be another Trafalgar, a decisive and glorious victory at sea. Instead, the early lists of ships lost were shocking. 3 British battlecruisers, Queen Mary, Indefatigable and Invincible, had been destroyed by catastrophic magazine explosions. The armoured cruiser Defence was gone. Other ships were damaged or missing. The scale of casualties was staggering. These losses were especially painful because battlecruisers were often mistaken in the public imagination for dreadnoughts. They carried the same great guns, but they did not have the same armour. They were never meant to stand in the line of battle. At Jutland, when they came under concentrated fire from German heavy guns, their vulnerability became tragically clear. Their destruction created the emotional impression of disaster. At the same time, German newspapers, also published on the 2nd and 3rd of June, declared victory. They listed British losses and claimed that the Grand Fleet had been driven back. To a public already stunned, it sounded possible. But as fuller reports emerged, particularly between the 4th and 6th of June, the picture changed. The Times played a decisive role in explaining what Jutland actually meant. While acknowledging the heavy British losses and the absence of a decisive tactical victory, it identified the essential strategic reality. The British Grand Fleet was still at sea. The German High Seas Fleet had withdrawn to harbour, and the British blockade of Germany remained intact. And these were the realities that mattered. The Royal Navy did not need to destroy the German fleet in a single action. Its purpose was to control the sea, to prevent Germany from importing food, fuel, and the raw materials of war. So long as Britain commanded the sea, Germany could not win. And after Jutland, Britain still commanded the sea. The British lost no dreadnought battleships in the battle. Every modern capital ship of the Grand Fleet returned to base. The Germans, for their part, lost the pre-dreadnought battleship Pommern, the battlecruiser Lutzow, and several cruisers and destroyers. Their modern dreadnought line survived, but their confidence did not. The High Seas Fleet did not come out again in comparable force. Over the next 2 years, the blockade tightened. German imports collapsed. Food shortages deepened. By late 1917, German civilians were living on rationing and partial starvation. By 1918, malnutrition and hunger were widespread. The blockade was doing what the guns had not done in a day. It was slowly breaking the German state. And in the autumn of 1918, the sailors of the German High Seas Fleet, the same fleet their newspapers had celebrated after Jutland, mutinied rather than attempt to fight again. Their refusal to sail was one of the final triggers of Germany's collapse. So while Jutland was not the dramatic victory the British public had once imagined, its long-term result was decisive indeed. The blockade continued. The German fleet remained contained. The Royal Navy maintained the economic pressure that would eventually play a central role in ending the war. Jutland was not the triumph the public had wanted, but it left Britain in control of the sea, and that was enough.